It is basically the 20 game mark. It's 21, 22 games for some teams, 20 for other teams. We're going to do the quarter awards in the form of a power poll. If you remember from when I wrote on ESPN.com and on Grantland, I used to do power polls for the NBA and the NFL. I used to split them up in little tiers, make little jokes, all that stuff. I'm going to do a modified version of that right now. I'm going to go backwards by tiers from 30 to 1. This is going to work. You're going to enjoy it. I swear to God, or your money back. Even though this podcast is free, I will give you your money back. First tier, this takes us from teams 30 to 26. Wobbling for Wemby. Excuse my voice. I've been sick for like 5 weeks. This might be my last podcast. I might die. So my voice is going to be a little wobbly, but it's fine. Wobbling for Wemby. 30 San Antonio, 29 Charlotte, 28 Detroit, 27 Houston, 26 Orlando. I think those 5 teams, whether they've wanted to admit it or not, are throwing their hats into the Wemby ring. San Antonio is terrible. They don't really have a choice. They're going to get worse. They'll trade Pirtle. They'll make some moves. They're going to be in the mix. What you want to be in that top 4 because you have the same percentages for top 4, basically. One thing about this tier, though, the league is really deep. And I noticed that I've been working on a trade value list for the Ringer, which I think is going to run in the next couple weeks. And I think I'm going to have 70 guys in the trade value list. And if you just look at Charlotte, Detroit, Houston, Orlando, LaMelo, Cade, Ivy, Jalen Green, Jabari, Paolo, Franz, all 8 are in my top 55. So even though it looks bleak, you're in the bottom 5. The best record out of all these teams is 6-15 for Charlotte and San Antonio. But at least they have talent and building blocks, so it could be worse. The next category is to tank or not to tank. There's 3 teams. Number 25, OKC, they're 8-13. Number 24, Chicago, they're 9-11. How about that? They're 9-11, even though they traded Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter, and this year's top 4 protected first for Vucevic, and they're the 7th worst team in the league. That's rough. And then I have the Knicks at 10-11. They're 23. The Knicks aren't bad, but that goes back to how deep the league is right now. The Knicks, I have as the 8th worst team in the league, and they're 10-11, and they're, one move away from 1 star from being kind of interesting. So here's my answers for to tank or not to tank. OKC, yes. How do they do it? Well, I think SGA, get him to the All-Star game. Maybe he can even be a starter. He's averaging 30 a game. And then I think he comes up with some sort of heel injury. And you just, or maybe you just take him for a ride and he just doesn't come back for 2 months. Chicago should tank. And they should go deeper than that. They should blow it up. Copyright Kevin O'Connor. Yeah, I have 3 trades right now that save Chicago, put them in the Wembanyama sweepstakes, give them a do-over, and they're ready to go. Trade number 1, DeRozan and Vucevic to the Lakers for Russ and those 2 firsts, and make the 27 unprotected, make the 29 top 5 protected. If you're the Lakers, if you're going to keep Davis, which I think is insane, but it seems like they're going to, if you're going to have LeBron's already putting out all these feelers for, you don't want to waste a great year for me. And the West is wide open. So you could talk yourself into it. What happens to Poinka if the trade doesn't work? He gets fired. He's going to get fired anyway. DeRozan and Vooch to the Lakers for Russ and 2 firsts, 1 lightly protected. Then trade Levine to the Knicks. Levine's coming off, the knee injury in May. He hasn't looked the same. But if you're the Knicks, you're like, well, we would have signed Levine for the max in the summer, so we'll get him anyway. So do Toppin and expirings, and maybe take them back the Fournier trade. And maybe do like a top 4 protected first next year, something like that. And you have Zach LaVine. And roll the dice that his knee will be fine. And then the last piece, Caruso, if Chicago tanks, is the most interesting trade piece. His contract is really good. I think it's $9 million. He's somebody that makes sense on the Bucks. He's somebody that makes sense on the Warriors. He's somebody that makes sense on the Cavaliers. Could Okoro be enough to get, they don't have any picks left. Could Okoro and something else be enough to get Caruso? Probably not, because I have Golden State stepping in here. Golden State, Moody, DiVincenzo, and some sort of future pick swap in 2027. Give him $3 billion too, because Reinsdorf has been a cheap owner his whole life. And you get Caruso on the Warriors. That's somebody who could play crunch time for them. Watch out for that. So anyway, you get all that stuff, you get all those picks, and you're in the Wembanyama sweepstakes. They should be doing this. Just Kyle, put that on the TikTok. I hope you turn the TikTok camera on because they should be doing that. All right, next category. Dead man walking. The Los Angeles Lakers. They're 7-12. They lost a game last night because LeBron fell asleep and forgot to guard some rookie from Gonzaga who hit a three at the buzzer. They have an impossible December schedule coming up. And if I were them, right now I'd trade Davis. Davis sweepstakes next 2 days. Who wants him? And I'm starting over. The entire league is rooting for them to panic and put those picks on the table. And I think that's probably what's going to happen. Number 21 and number 20 in a category called Panic Time. You can guess one of the teams. Minnesota, 10-11, just lost Towns for multiple weeks. Humiliated in the Golden State game a few days ago when it just became clear that Towns and Gobert against any team that has scoring and spacing, it's going to be a nightmare for them. The Towns Gobert thing, you might remember me saying in the summer repeatedly on a podcast with Russillo, who was agreeing with me vehemently that this had a chance to be one of the worst NBA trades of all time. We're creeping closer and closer, my friends. This was an awful trade. And now there's a new wrinkle because if Towns is out for a while and the West is really good and all of a sudden Minnesota starts creeping toward that bottom five in the West, they're 10-11 right now. Minnesota giving Utah the Wembanyama pick in this year's draft would be the single craziest plot twist, I think, this century in the NBA. I was trying to think of anything crazier than that. You could the Brooklyn Nets thing, Kobe and Shaq breaking up, Harden demanding to be traded twice. Like, you go through it. I think Utah getting the Wemby pick, another French guy in the Gobert trade, that would top everything. And by the way, A-Rod is one of the owners of Minnesota, which I think is hilarious. This would be yet another embarrassing title for him. So you have them and you have Atlanta at number 20. I do wonder if Atlanta's 2021 Eastern Conference run was probably the worst thing that could have happened to them. It made them think, I think they were closer than maybe they are. I didn't like when they gave up Herter when it happened. They got a protected pick from the Kings. And I just like Herter. I value Herter. I think he's a winning player. And I don't like giving guys away like that. Somebody they need. They need three-point shooting. They had a guy who's a great three-point shooter. They gave him away for like 55 cents a dollar. Panic time for both of those teams because they don't have their picks. Atlanta, at least, the picks in the Murray trade, their own picks don't start until 2025, but not great. They kind of made their move. Now it's like, hey, anyone want John Collins? They've been shopping John Collins, I think, since before the pandemic. So I don't know if there's like a huge John Collins market right now. I'm guessing Capella would be another one. He's playing well. Maybe you could trade him, but I think it's panic time for both of those teams. I know Atlanta's 11-10, but if you've actually watched the season and you've watched them play, like there's some weird chemistry stuff with them. They can't shoot, which is weird because they have Trey and they have Murray, who was supposed to be at least a good shooter. But the Nate McMillan thing's getting a little weird. I don't know. But watch that team. That team is the team that I could see them going on a 6-game winning streak, or I could see them going on an 8-game losing streak. Next category. Now we're getting into some fun territory, and this speaks to how deep the league is. Frisky and lovable, I have as the next category. 5 teams. Washington, 11-10. Utah, 12-11. Number 17, Portland's 11-9. Sacramento, our league pass MVP at 10-9. And then Indiana at 12-8. Indiana, the most improbable team. I guess they're a team. Not only on this list, but Jesus, like I can't believe they're the 15th best team in the league. I thought they're going to be like the 29th or 30th best team. I look at this list and you just have to think of the trades. Each team is frisky and lovable partly because of some awesome trade that they made. Like Washington, they trade Westbrook to the Lakers. They get a pick back. They get Kuzma, who's at $13 million, who I have on my trade value list. I couldn't believe it, but I kind of couldn't leave him off. He's in the 60s. They got Monte Morris for KCP. They got a first-round pick out of it. Russ is making $47 million this year, and now Beal is starting to show signs of looking like Beal from 2 years ago. They're fun. I don't want to say House is doing backflips about the Washington sports scene right now, but the C words are looking good. The Wiz are fun to watch. There's a little Porzingis comeback, like a tiny one. Like looked like he might have 50 points last night. Kind of resurgence. So you got Washington, you got Utah at number 18. which, we knew they would crash back to earth. It's going to be interesting how far they crashed. They basically lost Mike Conley. They had a hard schedule, but they lost Mike Conley, and, all of a sudden it became a little harder for them top rate in the clutch. I think the West is so tight, they still have to kind of wait around and see what happens. But if they continue to free fall, they'll start trading people. I would be very careful about trading Jordan Clarkson, though, because wherever the league is going, he's the guy that makes sense. Portland at 17, 11-9. They've had some luck with some of those wins. But on the other hand, they're better than I thought I would be. So that's a backhanded compliment. Like, they won that ridiculous Jeremy Grant game where he took 4 steps backwards. They won a Knicks game where Brunson hits an 8-footer in the end of regulation. I watched that game. They would have won that. They had another buzzer beater. They've been missing Dame for a couple weeks. They don't really have a lot to trade. The Grant trade looks like it was good. It looks like the hit was sharp. And I don't know, they're malleable. They could be a seller. They could be a buyer. Who knows? Sacramento is my favorite team in the league other than the Celtics. I watch as much of their games as possible. They have the most players that I like on one team. I love Sabonis. You know how I feel about Malik Monk. I kept all my stock. Now I feel like it's like having Apple stock from 2002. He's fantastic. Fox, they trade Halliburton to kind of give Fox the ball. Fox is now really fun to watch. He was somebody I never liked watching. I've enjoyed them this year. I love Herter. I'm excited about Keegan Murray. And they're just really fun. I was going to tweet this, but I think only 5 people would have gotten the joke. To me, they're the Kevin Owens of the NBA. They're probably going to lose half their matches. Maybe they'll win 53% of their matches. The matches are always fun. And they'll sell out for the other team. The other team ends up looking great in the game no matter what happens. I like Sacramento. And then you have Indiana at 12-8. And Sacramento and Indiana are linked because of that trade they made last year, which was Halliburton and Hield for Sabonis. This is one of the most fun trades of the past 12 years. It was fun when it happened. Now it's super fun because it's the rare trade where both teams got better. Sabonis has been really good for the Kings, and he's also unleashed Fox because Fox didn't have to share, had this weird thing with Halliburton where it was clear Halliburton was really good. Whose team was it? Now Sabonis comes in, fits in great with Fox. Fox has been unleashed. He's having a career year. Indiana gets Halliburton and Hield. They take Mathurin, who has been one of the best rookies, who is just an absolute beast. Sacramento gets exactly what they want in this trade. Works out perfectly. And they lost the trade. And they lost it badly because Halliburton is turning into a franchise guy. I had him on my trade value list, spoiler alert, and this might change by the time we actually publish it. I have him 24th right now. I have him between Siakam and Dame. He runs the team. I loved him in college. As you remember, I thought he should be a top 3 pick. I was outraged that Phoenix passed on him at 10. He's better than I thought he was going to be in 2020. To be fair, just as I'm praising myself, I also thought Tyrell Terry was going to be one of the 10 best players in the draft. So look, I'm not perfect. But Halliburton, 11, 12 assists every game. Great decisions, makes everyone better. Good shooter. I love watching him. The Lakers play was so great at the end of the game where they get the offensive rebound. He's got like 5 seconds left. In 5 seconds, he figures out exactly how much time he has left. He takes his time. The Lakers think he's going to shoot because the clock's running down. And he's like, nah, I'm going to take an extra second here. And then whips this crazy cross-court pass to the rookie who sinks to 3 because LeBron fell asleep. And it was like, how many guys in the league would have made that play? I don't know. It's less than 5. Halliburton is ridiculous. I have Mathurin 48th. I'm going to learn how to pronounce his name eventually. But you think like with Halliburton, the 2020 draft wreckage from the pandemic year where just, you knew there was going to be some variance, but Golden State has 2. If Halliburton gets into March Madness, maybe he rises. Maybe he actually would have had to be a top 4 pick if his college made a run during Madness. Wiseman, if you'd been able to interview him or work him out, maybe you don't like him as much, but when you're doing everything on Zoom and you have 3 games to work off, I still think the Wiseman pick's super defensible. To me, it's no different than quarterbacks in the NFL where you take a top 5 pick and it's like Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold, whoever, you have 50-50 chance. And there's a 50% chance it's not going to work. But if it does work, all of a sudden you have somebody incredible, right? You have, trying to think, Mahomes went later than the top 5, but you end up in like a Mahomes, Justin Herbert's another example. And they took the swing and it doesn't look like it's worked out. It doesn't look like he has the hoops IQ to hang with that team. I still think it was defensible, but man, if they had more information on Halliburton, I really wonder if they would have taken him there because he's like the perfect warrior. Washington at number 9 should be kicking themselves too. But anyway, I have Indiana at 15, and Halliburton's a big reason. That trade was awesome, and I don't think they can tank. I think they have too much talent. If anything, I would be looking to maybe add to what you have. And what's interesting, they seemed like they gave away Brogdon, and they did to some degree because they wanted to create some minutes, but Neesmith's not terrible. They got a pick out of it. They got playing time for the guys they wanted. So the trade was defensible. It's a little like the Portland trade when they traded McCollum. It seemed like they didn't get enough for him, but they got a pick that they could use. They got Josh Hart back. Then they were able to make the second trade for Grant. And then after you saw the totality of it, it made sense. And maybe that's what's going to happen with that Brogdon trade. Next category. Now we're down to the top 14. You didn't think this gimmick was going to work. You're kind of enjoying it. I have 4 teams here. This category is called Let's Wait a Month. Number 14, Miami. They're 10 and 11. Number 13, Brooklyn, 11 and 11. Number 12, Dallas, 10 and 10. Number 11, Toronto, 11 and 9. Here's why I'm going to say let's wait a month. Go through all the teams. Miami, health-wise, I don't know. How many games are you getting from Jimmy Butler per season at this point? 55? Have you seen Lowry? He's just going to be 15 pounds above his 2013 playing weight for the rest of his career, I think. I don't trust him to stay healthy. Hero's already gotten hurt. They have no bench. No idea when Oladipo's coming back. It's a team that's kind of hanging around, but if you really watch them, and I said this to Verno and House 2 weeks ago, I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors with this team. Bam is playing great, but defensively, really, it's just Bam and Butler when he's playing. Other than that, they're like playing zones. They have Hero at forward sometimes. The big test for them is going to be they have 2 games in a row in Boston, Wednesday and Friday. And this Boston team, which we'll talk to in a second, is a fucking offensive machine. And I don't know if Miami defensively is ready for this machine. But you don't want to bet against Miami. So to me, it's like we're using the past performance and heat culture and all that stuff. And we're trying to carry it over into this new season when they're not the same team. And we're going to know one way or the other. I'm not saying that they won't be good in these next 2 games in Boston because they might be, and it might feel like the Eastern Finals and all that stuff. I don't trust it. My bet would be that they're not the same team, but we're going to find out. Number 13, Brooklyn, getting an incredible KD season, which we'll talk about in 1 second. But the Kyrie trade is the big thing for me. They got to get him off the team. He's playing pretty well the last last 10, 14 days. And they're doing okay. He hasn't had any blow-ups. He's been seemingly contrite. You got to get him out. Got to sell high. It's like you're not even selling high, but just you got to move now. Get him out. And, if they can, look, if the Lakers can bite and they have to take Westbrook's back and get a future pick that they can get spin for somebody else, great. If they can maybe get Dallas. I mean, Dallas is pretty panicky. Dallas I have at number 12 here. Dallas just signed Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker hasn't had a meaningful basketball moment in 2.5 years. And they were interviewing, I love Kemba Walker, by the way. I feel bad about saying this, but they're interviewing him on the sideline during this Golden State Dallas game tonight. And he's talking, I'm going to bring some energy and I'm a good locker room guy and hopefully some scoring. And it's like, yeah, on paper, this all works. If you were 2018 Kemba Walker, we have no idea if your knees can hold up. They won't. You can't guard anybody anymore. Dallas already has issues with guys who can't guard anybody. And I don't see how this works. So I'm wondering if Dallas is the Kyrie team because, I think they need to make a move. I don't think it's sustainable what they're doing. It was sustainable in 2007 when the league was way less deep. But as great as Luka is individually, you're just putting him with a bunch of role players and it's not going to work. The league's too good now. It's, last year they were able to get into the Western Finals for a variety of reasons, right? We had Clippers injuries. We had Memphis. They were banged up. And then we had just a black swan event with whatever the fuck happened with Phoenix in that series. But I went under on them this year heading into the season. I think I made that one of my locks too. I don't think they have enough talent. And so much relies on Luka that, he's getting mentioned in the MVP arguments because of his stats, and he should. But I wonder, do you feel like the guys around him are getting better? Maybe Josh Green? I don't know. It's a weird vibe. I would be a hypocrite if I was so harsh on the Westbrook OKC teams and the Harden Houston teams. This is not one guy having the ball all the time. This does not work. I cannot support this. As brilliant as Luka is, I can't support this style. I don't think it works. I don't. If you're trying to win a title, I don't see it. I think you need more. And that, the Kyrie thing, put him in Dallas in that Kemba spot what they're envisioning for Kemba, and that becomes a little more fun. And maybe it's just, is it Dinwiddie and Powell's expiring for Kyrie? Is that too much? I don't know. But maybe Dallas is the team that makes the play for him. And then Toronto, I have a number 11, 11-9. They just haven't been healthy. I want to see, Siakam was playing really well. He got hurt. Barnes was hurt for a tiny bit. Anunoby's been excellent this year and is in the running for, I would say, a possible first team all defense guy, definitely at least second team. But I just want to see all their guys together, and then we can figure out, all right, what do you need? The Gary Trent contract, you have some picks. What do you need? What are you going to do? One last note on this tier, the let's wait a month tier. KD is having a holy shit season. And I feel like I'm heading toward an existential crisis when we get toward the MVP ballot, because he is at least partly the reason this Brooklyn thing has been so bizarre and such a soap opera, right? He demanded to be traded. He asked for the coach and GM to be fired. He's the one that vouched for Kyrie and defended him and all that stuff. And he's also the leader of the team. And I think until Nash got fired, it felt like the team was rudderless and didn't have a leader. What he's done since Nash got fired, he's kind of made it his team. And he's 37-5, 30 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. He's shooting 55%, 37% from three, 92% free throw, 7.8 free throw attempts, which I love. Get to the line 8 times, I'm happy. And he's playing 36.7 minutes a game, partly because it's really hard for them to ever take him out. I went through his basketball reference because I was like, I think this is his second best season I've ever seen from him. And that was confirmed, at least statistically. The 2014 was his, that was his opus. I think you could say that run he had in 2019 before he hurt his Achilles for the Warriors, his kind of contract year run, was probably the best he's ever played. But this is something. And it's his 16th season, which is amazing. You throw in not only Kyrie drama, but Ben Simmons. What the fuck are you getting from that guy game to game? Joe Harris, he hasn't been healthy. Seth Curry started out hurt, getting healthy. Still doesn't seem like the Seth from last year. So the fact that KD's been able to hold this together, they're 11-11, and it's not that hard to get the 4 seed in the East. It's going to be Boston, Milwaukee, Cleveland, and that 4 seed is going to be sitting there for somebody. So Brooklyn's, they're hanging around, and they're hanging around because of him. So when we get to MVP ballot time, which I hate to break it to the people who keep doing MVP rankings, but we're only 20 games in. It's pretty hard to do that. I'm talking to you, Zach Lowe. By the way, Zach's my friend. I gave him shit for this. It's going to be really hard for me to not put him in the top 5, even though he's one of the reasons this team is so dysfunctional. I got to figure it out. All right, we're into the top 10. I have the semi-wildcards. The Clippers, number 10, 12-9. Philly, number 9, they're 12-9. I don't have a lot to say about either of these teams, but I will say this. On a scale of 1 to 10, writing off Kawhi ever being a superstar again, or even a meaningful star, I'm at an 8. I've pretty much given up. And the reason I mention this is because I have Clipper season tickets. I've had them since 2004. They've been fun the last 10 years, a couple of the seasons. 2012, 13, 14, they were a real contender. And 15. Blake Griffin, Lob City, that was fun. There was a lot of promise here with the Kawhi Paul George thing. I enjoyed the year before they got Kawhi, 2018. That was a fun, or 2019, that was a fun Clipper year. it doesn't look like this team is ever going to make it to the finals. And it doesn't look like that way because it doesn't seem realistic that Kawhi is going to be good anymore in the way that he was. He's 32. He was in the 2011 draft. Doesn't seem like the wear and tear of, you're talking 10 weeks in the playoffs. Then you get, like Haralba was talking last week on this podcast about that conference final stretch where it's basically you're playing every other night for game 3 through game 7. What would possibly make you think he's going to be able to handle that? And without him, they're just not good enough. And we thought that was the best duo in the league. Now it's clearly Jalen and Tatum. They're the younger, more durable version of whatever our ideal of Kawhi and George was. So I'm an 8 for him. And then on the scale of 1 to 10 of trusting an Embiid-hardened health nucleus with Doc Rivers coaching them, I'm sorry, I'm still an 8.5. I'm an 8.5 not trusting it. You could even talk me into being a 9. So I'm mad at myself. I bet on them. I bet on their over, which was 50, because I thought they'd be a good regular season game. And of course, Harden's already been hurt for a month. Who knows with Embiid? Anyway, we'll move on. Next category. Only 8 teams left. The sleepers. I have number 8, New Orleans, 12-8, and number 7, Cleveland, 13-8. New Orleans is the team to watch. They just need to be healthy for a month. What's crazy, I don't feel like we've seen all of their dudes together, and they're still top 10 in offensive and defensive rating. They still have a shitload of talent, and most important, they have trades. This is another team that could just go get Caruso if they wanted to. Cleveland, same thing, where Garland starts the season, he gets hurt. Allen's hurt now. It just feels like they had a huge West Coast trip right in the start when they were playing well, and it just seems like, can we get 3 weeks from them where they're just home and happy and healthy? Zion and Mobley are the wild cards. Zion, there's no matchup for him in the West. He's going to overpower every single team in the league if he's feeling it. They will slowly figure out how to unleash him. He seems like he's getting more and more comfortable offensively. And then the Mobley piece, there's some interesting, we don't have enough data yet, but there's some interesting, John Schumann had it in his Monday column. There's some interesting Mobley as the only big on the floor stats with the Cavs, meaning no Love, no Jared Allen, just like Mobley basically as like the KG big, where it's pretty much the best lineup they have. I still like him and Allen together the most, but the ability for them to potentially go small ball with him, I think I would like to see them tap into. Anyway, New Orleans is 13-1 in the West. Cleveland is plus 750 to win the East. I think those are pretty good values. Next category, we're down to the bottom 6. The contenders, I have 4 teams here. Memphis 12-8, Golden State 11-11, Denver 13-7, Phoenix 14-6 as the number 3. So Memphis, I think, has the highest ceiling, right? Bane makes another leap. He gets hurt right as Jackson's coming back. So we haven't seen Bane, Jackson, and Morant all together. And once we see that, I think the ceiling of them from a talent, youth, defense, grit, grind standpoint, the home court advantage, I still think Denver's going to have the best record in the West, but I think Memphis would be if I had to bet on one of those 4 teams, I might lean toward Memphis because I think they also have a lot of assets they could move in a trade, which Golden State does too. Denver really does not, and Phoenix really does not. But I'm watching Memphis. I want to see them go on a run, and I feel like it's going to happen at some point. Denver has the best player out of these 4 teams. Sorry, Steph Curry, earmuffs. But Jokic is so dominant when he's on the floor, and then when he goes off the floor, it's a catastrophe. It's a 30-point difference if you look at that 100 possessions, points per, whatever that stat is. I do think the Jokic three-peat is in play. People are talking about Tatum for MVP, Luka, Curry, Giannis, all the usual suspects, but just don't sleep on, we're going to wake up in January and Denver's going to be 27-11 or something, or, 29-9. And we're like, wait a second. Are we going to have this Jokic conversation again? I will say this. He's the most fun player in the league to play with other than maybe Curry. And he really, really does make everybody else better. Everybody benefits from him. So just had to mention that. Golden State has a pedigree. I'm not ruling them out. The big thing with them is Draymond looks like he's back last 6 games. He was awesome in that Minnesota game. Like, just awesome. I think he had 11 assists, no turnovers, and just looked like Draymond again. So whatever happened in that punch, it feels like the hangover is done with them. And, or at least as far as we can tell. But it looks like they have their mojo back. They still have a trade to make. They're going to do something. I think test driving DiVincenzo for the next month or so, but I'll be interested to see if that ends up being their swing guy. I still am not, if Clay doesn't have it, I still don't know who their 5 is. Like if it's like they're down 3-2 in a series, they're in Memphis, and Clay's 2 for 12. Who's in that spot? It's Curry and Poole, some sort of swing, Draymond. I don't know. I can't figure it out yet with them. I can't figure out what their optionality is if Clay's not playing well. And until they figure that out, I think they're going to still be struggling. Phoenix, it's weird. Booker's playing great. Chris Paul easing into a different phase of his career, I think it's fair to say, but still wouldn't be surprised if he could put together 10 good playoff weeks. Ayton's been good. They have kind of the infrastructure, which is why they're 14-6, but they have a lot of question marks to me. What are they getting from Crowder? Do we trust CP? Do we trust Cameron Payne? I don't. I trust CP way more, like his ability to play in year 19 or whatever it is versus whatever they've been getting from Cameron Payne. I don't like their bench that much. They don't really have a lot to trade, and the Halliburton pick continues to haunt them. But, they know who they are, and Booker is great. And Booker, I think, has ascended. I had him in my trade value list. I think he was in the top 9, maybe. Yeah. So he was not in the top 9 when I did over the summer. The favorites are Milwaukee at 14-5. Look, Giannis statistically is a little down. They haven't been able to have Middleton and Holiday out there together for a long stretch. They might still be a wing short. This would be a great Caruso team, but it's still Milwaukee. It's still Giannis. You don't want to see them, and they're still going to win somewhere between 55 and 60 games. So I'm not going to overreact to any piece of it. I am going to overreact to the Celtics. 17-4. I have them as number 1. Some Celtic stats for you. They're 45-11 in their last 56 regular season games. They have a 12.5 point differential this season. The franchise record, as Sean Grandy points out, was 10.3 in 2008. So they're better than the 2008 and 1986 team for point differential right now. Their points per 100 possessions, 121.5. The record in the history of the NBA is 117.3 by the 2021 Nets. So they're shattering it. And if you watch them, it kind of makes sense. It's what Haralabab said last week when we were doing the pod. These teams that have 5 guys who can shoot is kind of like staring into the future of wherever the league is going. It's been 10 years now since the Curry influence started, right? 2012-13, that was the first Curry season where it's like, what's this? Wait a second, what's happening? This guy's going to shoot from there? And we've had 10 years of it, and the sport has changed in front of our eyes. And you're looking at a whole new generation of guys, 24 and under, who are coming in who just play the Curry style. They play that wide open 3-point slash and kick. They know how to do it. So you have this whole new young working class coming in that can shoot from any spot, that know where to go, that can play. And just the sport's changing, and the Celtics like personify it. Like, every guy in the team can shoot. It's unbelievable. Robert Williams is out right now. Even Cornette, who's the backup center right now, even he could make a 3 from time to time. They have 5 of the 19 players in the league who have taken at least 33s and are making 45% of them. 5 of the 19. They have Sam Hauser, who Chris Mannix just wrote about this week, who's been, an unbelievable story. It makes me mad that they didn't throw him out there in the finals last year. But he's turned into like the Max Strus, Duncan Robinson type that you've been, if you're a Celtic fan, you've been wondering for 30 years why we can't get one of those guys. They Pritchard, who doesn't even play. And Pritchard, they'll just throw out, and he'll have an awesome 15 minutes. You're like, I can't believe this guy can't be in an NBA rotation. I feel like he'd play 35 minutes a game for the Lakers. He's barely playing for the Celtics. And then you have Tatum and Brown, the best duo in the league, 56.9 points a game, which is We're nearing like Shaq Kobe territory with that. Like vintage Shaq Kobe territory is the 56.9 range. I'm just telling you, go look it up. They're shooting 49%, making 35% of their threes. That it feels like that could actually go up a little. 85% free throws, 13.5 free throws a game. All the advanced stats are ridiculous. And Tatum, as we talked about in this pod previously, like he's just answered any question you had from him from the finals last year. He plays his fucking ass off. He gives a shit. He's going to be either first team or second team all defense, and he should be because he's a ridiculous two-way player now. He's fixed all of the getting to the basket, bouncing off guys, finishing little 12-footers, all the stuff that Golden State exposed, he's fixed. And I think he's been the best two-way player in the league. And if the Celtics are going to be a 60-win team or a 65-win team potentially, he has to be the MVP because he's the key to all of it. The way they're playing with all these shooters, it reminds me a little of in Madden or even in the real NFL when you just have 5 receivers, no running back, and you're just like flinging it. And the defense at some point has to decide, all right, what do we do? That's what they're doing night after night. They're having these games. Like they played Charlotte, they had 45 points in the first quarter. It felt like they were going to get 50. And you're sitting there watching, and you're like, are they going to get 180 points today? Just incredible firepower. It's up there for me with the 86 Celtics as the best offensive team we've had since I've been following the team. And, you know, the big thing was Joe Mazzulla. He's coming in. It's like, this is a disaster. This guy wasn't even one of the lead assistant last season. We lose Ime, who was a huge part of the success. How's this going to work? Guy's been great. He's already got little coaching quirks. Like he won't call timeouts sometimes. He wants them to play through it. His subs are really smart where, you know, like Friday night, they were playing Sacramento and Sacramento's lingering around and they bring in Pritchard and they bring in Cornette at the perfect time. And Pritchard's awesome. He ends up being plus 29 in 11 minutes. And it was just, he just has a sense for, maybe I'll bring this guy in. Well, I love what they're doing with Blake Griffin. My dad was talking this about me today, where with Blake Griffin, they basically told him, like, you're not going to play garbage time. And we're not going to throw you out there, just throw you out there. When you play, you're actually going to play. So Blake Griffin has now turned into this once-a-week player for them, which they haven't had a lot of back-to-backs yet, but they had one yesterday in that Charlotte game. And it's like, all right, Blake, today's your day. So Blake's now turning into like this, 40-year-old guy at the Y who's like, every Tuesday I get a run in with the Celtics. And he played well. And that's maybe the way to use it. Maybe he plays 38 games, but when he plays the 38 games, he's playing like 19, 20 minutes a game. Teammates love him, and it's a good spot for him. It's the best team he's ever been on. So I think the Celtics are the clear number one right now. I have them leading the power poll. We will see if that continues. I'll do this again at the 40 game mark.